She had no home, no warmth to call her own, just the cold streets and the faint hum of her little keyboard. Every day was a struggle, searching for spare change, finding a corner to rest, and hoping someone might spare a kind word. Yet even in her tattered coat and worn shoes, her fingers never stopped moving, tracing melodies only she could hear. Music was her refuge, her hidden world, a place where hunger and ridicule had no power. Passers-by barely noticed her, and when they did, their stares were cruel. They assumed she was nothing, just another street girl wandering aimlessly. Yet beneath the surface, she carried a secret, a gift that could command a room, a talent, so rare it could silence even the most judgmental crowd. Each note she practiced on her small keyboard was a reminder of what she could be, and each day, the tension of being unseen and underestimated weighed heavier. Some days, she wondered, if anyone would ever recognize her, if anyone would see past the tattered clothes and tired eyes. Little did she know, a single accidental step into a place she wasn't supposed to be would test that very question. She had never intended to walk into the Grand Piano Club. The warm glow inside had simply drawn her in, a refuge from the biting wind outside. But the moment she stepped through the polished doors, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations halted, and dozens of eyes turned toward her, sharp with disbelief. The patrons' laughter started as whispers, but soon it grew louder, mocking her torn coat, her scuffed shoes, the tiny keyboard she clutched like a lifeline. And then came the teacher, the man who was supposed to guide, instruct, and inspire. Instead, he sneered at her with cruel amusement. "This isn't your place," he said, his voice cutting through the air like a whip. "Do you really think you belong here?" The words hit her like cold water. She could feel the weight of every glance in the room, every whispered judgment, and every smirk that assumed her dreams were meaningless. For a moment she wavered, her hands trembling. Maybe they were right. Maybe this world, filled with wealth and elegance, had no room for someone like her. Yet something inside her refused to break. She took a step toward the grand piano, her fingers grazing the polished keys. The laughter didn't stop. The teacher's mocking smile remained, but she drew a deep breath, the kind that carries both fear and defiance, and pressed the first note. It was soft, almost tentative, but it cut through the murmur of the room like sunlight through storm clouds. Eyes widened, whispers faltered. The sound of music, pure, haunting, impossibly skilled, began to command attention. Still, tension mounted. The teacher leaned closer, disbelief in his eyes. "Who taught you to play like that?" he demanded, his voice a mixture of anger and incredulity. Every patron in the club held their breath, expecting her to falter, expecting embarrassment to swallow her. But she didn't stop. With every note, every chord, she told her story without a single word. The hunger, the cold, the countless times she had been dismissed. Music became her language of defiance, each melody sharper than the ridicule that had filled the room seconds before. The murmurs of mockery slowly gave way to silence. A few hands clutched at their drinks, unsure whether to leave or stay. The teacher, who had sneered the loudest, straightened in his chair, disbelief etched across his face, and just as the first movement of her piece reached a crescendo, a stunned hush filled the room entirely. Could the girl they had mocked, laughed at, and tried to belittle truly transform ridicule into awe? Was it really possible that a homeless girl, unnoticed and underestimated her whole life, could silence an entire elite audience in a single performance? The tension hung there, thick and electric. Every patron knew the moment had shifted. Nothing would ever be the same. And yet, the story was far from over. The music swelled, filling every corner of the opulent club, leaving no room for mockery or scorn. The notes poured from her fingers with such precision and emotion that the laughter that had once cut through her like knives vanished entirely. The patrons, frozen mid-sip and mid-whisper, could hardly believe what they were hearing. Even the music teacher, who had sneered the loudest, felt his smug certainty crumble under the weight of her talent. His eyes widened, disbelief etched across his face, as if the very idea that someone like her could play so flawlessly was impossible. "Who taught you this?" he stammered, the sneer gone, replaced by astonishment bordering on fear. Every note she struck was a defiance of the assumptions, the ridicule, and the prejudice that had followed her whole life. She was no longer just a homeless girl. They had all underestimated her, and now the room was hers. Her fingers danced over the keys, weaving a melody that was both delicate and commanding, sorrowful and triumphant. Memories of cold streets, hunger, and the countless times she had been dismissed fueled her playing. Each chord was a statement. "I exist. I matter. Do not judge me by my appearance." The room held its breath, every listener caught in the spell she had cast, unable to look away. For a fleeting moment, time itself seemed to pause. The music teacher, the patrons, even the staff, they all knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. The ridicule that had once surrounded her was gone, replaced by awe and a stunned silence that resonated louder than any applause. And, as the final note lingered in the air, hanging between disbelief and admiration, one question remained unspoken but unavoidable. Could this accidental encounter, this moment of courage, change everything for a girl the world had ignored for far too long? The last note hung in the air, trembling like a heartbeat, and for a moment, silence reigned. Then came the applause, slow at first, hesitant, and then growing into a roar that echoed through the lavish piano club. The girl looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. The same people who had laughed at her, mocked her, and dismissed her talent were now on their feet, clapping, some with tears glistening in their eyes. Even the music teacher approached, his previous sneer replaced with admiration, offering guidance and opportunities she had only dreamed of. In the days that followed, the video of her performance spread like wildfire. Music schools, philanthropists, and mentors reached out, eager to nurture the prodigy who had been hiding in plain sight. She went from being invisible on the streets to being celebrated on stages she had only imagined, proving that talent and courage cannot be contained by circumstance, appearance, or prejudice. But the impact went beyond her. Every note she played became a reminder of how often society judges before it sees, ridicules before it understands, and dismisses before it listens. Her story became a symbol, a call to recognize the potential in those overlooked, to challenge assumptions, and to question the barriers that inequality and bias place in front of talent. She had walked into that piano club by accident, but the world would never see her as an accident again. Her music had spoken louder than ridicule, louder than prejudice, and louder than the narrow judgments that had once defined her. And now, the question remained for all of us: how many hidden voices, hidden talents, and hidden dreams do we ignore every single day, simply because we fail to look beyond the surface?